slow everything down. I'm aware, very, very aware, that probably nobody will click on these videos. Barely anybody. Maybe they will. Like, I produced a video about, this next video where I was looking at what the AIS feature had to say about my literary or intellectual traction podcast, and that video got really, really popular. I was like, I didn't intend for that video to be popular. It just did. Hopefully that podcast will become very popular because of that. Anyway, you can't control what videos become more popular or don't, but I'm very well aware this video might not get a lot of views. These videos might not get a lot of views. But this video is equal to all of my other videos on my channel, and therefore all of the other videos on YouTube. You are not obligated to click on this video and watch it. You don't have to if you don't want to. Some, when I get more following, probably one day will find it and find it interesting. I don't know. I'm doing it for myself. I made very, very clear. I made a whole song about it. I am doing these videos and I'm sharing them for myself. I'm not doing it for the sake of others. So I don't want to hear the, oh, why are you doing this? It's pointless. Or you shouldn't be doing this. I'm doing this because I authentically want to do this as part of my Real Me podcast. And if you have something to say about this content, I would suggest checking out the Vastness of Google podcast. That is where I do my astrology updates, my transits, my general videos. So if you have something to say about this, go check out the Vastness of Google and other content. Go check out that podcast, for instance, and that will be what you will do. I actually recommend all this content that I produce for my the Real Me podcast to nobody because they wouldn't be interested. I recommend the Vastness of Google content. That is what I have found. And so I'm going to get into some more elements here of the Amenten and what I have on this oracle deck. I'm not getting into meanings because that's, something else. And I didn't think it through. I did not think this through. I thought, well, I could have just gave them the introduction and leave it at that. Well, I didn't, and I've already kind of got the ball rolling, started doing parts, so I might as well just continue. Like, I'm a finisher of what I start. So, hopefully I can get through as many of these as I possibly can in the amount of time that I can, although, well, I'm getting this very strong feeling inside of me that it's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen. I have a Scorpio South node. And whenever I try to intensely go at something in an intense, determined way to get it done, then it doesn't work. It causes burnout. It causes exhaustion. It causes, just you can't get it done. You have to face the facts that you're not going to get it done in a day. So you know what? I have a Taurus North node. I will get things done. I will get the things I need to do done. However, I will not give in to rushing or deadlines, because that is giving in to the Scorpio South Node part of me. Because the Scorpio South Node is like, I gotta get this done. I'm so determined. And, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this because it's coming up. an example of the Scorpio South Node. A long time ago, I tried to get something done really, really rushed because it was due that night, and I ended up burning myself out because I was rushing, I was frantic, and I could have prioritized my inner peace. Instead of doing it for others, for my professor, for my college professor, I did it for her. I was sacrificing my own values, my own peace, my own, calm, and my slow and steady. I was sacrificing that for others. Because I found out about it just then, and I had to get that night. Anyway, I could have found about it, over the weekend, but I needed a break. It would have been too much. I don't want to be resistant to taking classes or anything, but I'm telling you right now, if anyone rushes me with things, I will simply say, I have a Taurus North Node. I am not meant to rush. I am meant to take my time and slow it down. That is what I am meant to lean into this life. And I feel really strong about doing a whole video on the North Node and Taurus sometime coming up this week, because it's just such a prominent theme in my life right now. So I thought I'd just clear that out of the way before even getting into what I want to get into, because if things come up, I will acknowledge them. I will be real about them. I will not just edit myself and do that unless it just feels unnecessary. Like, if it feels necessary to talk about it, I will talk about it. As simple as that. Because that is being real and true to myself. I don't make videos for viewers, oh, they're not going to like it. They're going to want to focus on this. And then it gets complicated because there's videos on how to do technical things. And, okay, complicated. I didn't want to go there. I don't do these videos. I do these videos. And if things come up, then things come up. Okay, I don't want to make it. I don't want to get caught in the net of that. Anyway, getting into what I wanted to talk about today. Edward Burns. Or, somebody from the Amentens. I don't remember who it is because I wrote this Oracle deck a long time ago, probably 2 years ago at the beginning. So let's see, the message is about organization. Now, the nickname to this person is Eggburn Railroad. Very, very funny. I based this off of the narrative, the narrator of Thomas and Friends, like the American narrator of Thomas and Friends, not the current one. The Thomas and Friends has just gotten so bad. All this stuff, like the voice of Thomas used to be very, very good, and it used to be very good, but now the voice is I cringe at it. I cringe at Thomas's voice. And in the most recent Thomas and Friends episode, it makes me so uncomfortable to listen to because, no, that is not what Thomas sounds like as a character, and I don't like it at all. It's just too kid-like. It's too fake. It just makes me cringe. Okay. Anyway, Eggburn Railroad. This man is special in the sense that he originally created the very popular children's show Thomas and Friends. Okay, maybe the narrator had a different name, but this is what I am creating in my mind. This is all my creation. It has many dogged locations from the docks to the seaside in King Alfred's castle. Like, these are the locations of Sodor. This is talking about Sodor. The docks, there's somebody's on a scooter. I used to do that, looking at the window. But I don't do it anymore because I feel, injured my teeth and I don't want to risk that anymore. So anyway, so there's the docks. You're thinking, there's the docks. There is where the ships come in, and etc. The seaside castles on there, and Knapford Station. Those are all places on the island of Sodor, to name a few wonders of the island of Sodor. The actual creator of Thomas and Friends is named Wilbert Oddie. This is not make-believe, because I believe I looked this up. I believe this is right. If I did, the research and I say the actual creator, I will trust that it's right. However, okay, it is right. However, in the Amenten realm, that is not his name. Many characters and places were thought and dreamed up and created by this man. So this man created Thomas and Friends. He created the story behind it. He created all these things. So this is based off of Thomas and Friends because there were many, growing up, I watched this show. So much. I've seen so many episodes of this, and some of the guests that I pretended to invite to my Amenten were Thomas and Friends guests. From Thomas and Friends. So, dreamt up and thought, created by this man. This was his creation. He created the Railroad House, and also narrated Thomas and Friends to the utmost T of being what it is. So he narrated the thing as it was meant to be for a children's show, for a children's audience. Especially in seasons 6 through 23, roughly, he narrated those seasons very well. The farmers got their eggs from the market. This is an association that I form in my mind when it comes to Thomas and Friends. It's the farmers get their eggs from the market. The kind of thing, I hear the narrator saying that on several episodes. It's a metaphor. They get their things delivered to them, and they, this metaphor, eggs to the market, means that they get their things delivered and they get the things brought to them, anything, people, places, whatever, in an efficient way. These places get things in an efficient way. That's what this means. I should call him that, Sir Topham Hatt, who's the ruler of the island of Sodor, gets everything running according to him, according to his schedule, according to how things should be run for him in an efficient way, because that's how railroads work. They're supposed to be efficient. So much like the deliverers of the island of Sodor came to be what they are. Gordon carries the express on the island of Sodor. Thomas carries Aaron, Jenny, and Clarabelle. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. Toby carries Henrietta, all of which are special and unique to the engines in some way or shape. Makes them all unique. All the characters in Thomas and Friends also carry with them their own personalities and character traits, but that is much better to be discussed another day. So, the whole thing about Thomas and Friends is it's this metaphor for real children growing up, or real people having personalities and clashing, and have the differences of personalities, and it's basically this satire is not the right word. It's basically this metaphor is the best word I can come up with. This setup in which you have all these engines who have their own personalities, their own roles to play, and they have different personalities, the makeup, and there's dynamics that happen in the show that are so real that we as people engage with and have these issues and have these all of these different personality clashes, and we're seeing the differences of personalities. Like, that's what the show is about. It's the kind of the whole illustration of all those episodes and of all those movies. Moving on. I'm going really, really deep with this, so that's why I'm breaking it up into parts, because I cannot do this in one thing. It would kill the life out of me. Snow White is the next card in the deck. And Snow White came to the Amenten back in 2012, the end of 2012. I remember watching Snow White very, very well. And Snow White is about being your independent self away from your ancestors and your, people that have come before you, like how she freed herself from her evil stepmother. So, as you may know, Snow White is a queendom. The queendom, meaning, not a kingdom like ruled by a king, but the queen, who the king, was when there wasn't that again. The queen, her stepmother ruled that individual that used to have a mother that died when she was very young, or who died when she was very young. Her stepmother disappeared on horseback from her life, and the only family left for her and her evil stepmother, the queen. There are many tales of Snow White that put it in someone such as Mater, her prince, and getting into a relationship with the seven dwarfs. This becomes a heavenly work and body of art. Snow White is indeed quizzy in her own way. It is her left. Now, this is very, very important because it's the little details that we honor, Amenten guests. Like, it's these little things. Like, it can be these little lines that they say that stick out to me. That stick out to me because I created this. That stuck out to me. I neglect saying that. Like, these things stuck out to me. Things they said. Movements. Clothes. Facial expressions. The things that made them unique. Things that made them special that I wanted to celebrate and fixate on and honor about these guests that I invited. Laughing and singing comes about very clearly in very popular interpretations of Snow White. And what happens at the end of the movie, Snow White? The spell breaks and the queen becomes her very old self again and hands Snow White an apple, which she fortunately rejects. This is how the story goes. That the queen is in her beauty, and I'm going to take my time with this because I'm not going to rush this, so I'm going to take my time with all this. The queen in Snow White, this gives me an opportunity to bring up insight after insight, and I don't want to waste this. So, okay, I had a mindset of getting through this, but I'm actually going to drop that mindset. I'm going to drop it because it's not healthy. And I was getting caught up in that habit again of just wanting to get it done, wanting to finish it. Not going to work. Not with all the things I have to say about this. Not going to work. So I'm going to surrender to that and accept that and claim that. So the spell breaks and the queen becomes very old. Like, the queen was under a spell to become, to stay young, to stay youthful. And Snow White kind of kept her. But, at the end of the movie, something happens and the mirror breaks or whatever, and she becomes her very, very old self again and hands Snow White an apple, which she rejects because she knew that it was poisonous. This is very similar to Rapunzel, when she finally figured out that her mother, Goppel, had been in charge of the whole thing. Spoilers. And in the movie, What did she do? She tried to keep her for herself, tried to keep her locked away in the tower, tried to keep her from seeing her family, tried to keep her from getting out to the world, and then eventually tied her up. And then, when she rejected, and then, spoilers, the hair broke from Rapunzel, and it turned color, and then Mother Gothel turned into this old woman again, and then she was devastated. But she was the one who did wrong, so, you're getting what you kind of deserve in that case, I guess. The world being a dark and scary place. It appears that she stole Rapunzel away from her palace, where she was meant to be in and live her life. It is all a trigonomical Disney of also going along with the mother dying and passing away. That's all I need to discuss from that, and I don't want to get too in depth into that. So that's Snow White. Okay, this is a big thing. 2018, I was really, really into the Underland Chronicles. Look at the whole book series by Susan Collins, and so that's what this is based on. I was really, really into that book series. Gregor is a character who lives in New York City. His sister falls down into this Underland where eventually they find all these characters, and they find this city called Regalian. Throughout the whole book series, they go on all these quests and have all these prophecies to, solve, and that's how this books go. And I don't want to get into the specific details of that because it's been forever since I've read those books, and I haven't finished the whole series, and someone kind of ruined the end of it for me. So anyway, I don't want to get into that. But find the truth. The Underlying Chronicles are a book series by author Susan Collins, who is well known for writing The Hunger Games, which she's also known for. And the Underlying Chronicles came before the Hunger Games, and it should be equally as popular as the Hunger Games. The Underlying Chronicles is a story of Gregor, who is 11 years old in New York City, whose sister Boots falls down into the laundry room to an underground land called the Underland. There are cockroaches who are friendly, and they are life-size cockroaches, like the cockroaches, you see living in reality are small cockroaches. These are big, real life-size ones. There is Aries, Ares, Aries, which I found out about before discovering that I was an Aries sun sign. So, who is a bat, and Gregor gets to know him very, very well and deeply in the book. In every book of the 5-book series, there are prophecies that need to be decoded and solved. Gregor goes on great adventures in these books and meets many amazing characters. The Underlying Chronicles came to the Amenten realm. That's the point. Very, very simple. They came to the Amenten realm. They were an Amenten guest. That's all you need to know about that. I don't want to go any further into that. Do I have to go into all the details of the Hunger Games? Do I have to spell out the whole narrative of the Hunger Games now? Wow. I have to be very, very discerning here. Very discerning. In the deck, I go into some depth about the book. I'm not going to do it here. I just feel like it's not necessary, so I just don't want to go into that. It just feels so unnecessary to go into that. But point being, the Hunger Games characters also came to the Amenten. I want to move on. Okay, what else? Now, Labembe Thinginghausa is another Amenten later. And, I may have to get rid of some of these cards because there's just so many of them. But Labembe Thinginghausa, that's her name. And the message is, nothing lasts forever, because guess what happened when she was an Amenten later? She did not last a while. She lasted 3 years, and then she was done. So she was like, I'm done with this. So Labembe Thinginghausa, or Mary Ann Sparks, was born on April 3rd, 1963. So Aries sun, Cancer North Node. That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense that she retired, because Capricorn is about work and ambition and putting forth effort and being very, ambitious when it comes to business and, your work. And South Node and Capricorn can be very, like, I have a duty, I have a responsibility, and it can drain them. Be like, I'm, carrying out this duty. And this North Node in Cancer says, wait into your emotions, like, come home. Go home inside yourself and connect with your emotions instead of, working all the time. I need to take that advice. and connect with your emotions, connect with your family, come home. And so she was leaning into her Cancer North Node. She was not meant to work all of that, time at the Amenten. Like, she was not meant to do it. It was not in the cards for her. It didn't feel right to her. In Seattle, Washington. She grew up in a, this is a little bit of an information about her, a wildly Protestant family whose origin was oranges in a bowl. That's where the name Thinking House came from. That's a deep thought. Basically, the oranges came in a bowl, and it, was a whole discovery thing. Oh, I don't want to get into that now. So it's, anyway, it is what it is. It was a highly religious family that put their trust in God before all else. This family was, very, very Christian. They, God was the most important thing. And, just like in medieval times when everybody would focus on God and, like nothing else mattered. It's like Christianity was the obsession. Christianity was the focus. It's kind of like that. This becomes difficult to pin down because the family was always going to pilgrimage visits to sacred sites and cruises as well. Became known as the family. Jump-started the Christian potluck event that occurred from 1966 to 1975 in Seattle that became infamously known to be filled with food. It is all relative to the viewpoint and perspective unto which you look at your religion. So, religion was a very, very big part of her life and a very, very big theme of her life. The friends that you need may not be what you need, but it becomes necessary to put your trust in them. So you may encounter friends that you may need, but you may not think that you need, but it's essential that you trust them, because in the long run, in the future, you will need them. Like you will rely on them and do all this kind of things like that. Soldiers of Brighton Old became well known throughout the Washington countryside. Mary Thinginghausen went through high school and really focused on the English and humanities departments in college. That was her area. She started her Amenten in the place where she was born and raised, Seattle. That's where she had her Amenten, is Seattle. She's famous for inviting historical figures to her Amenten. She was really, really big into the historical figures when she was an Amenten leader. When I was her, I guess. Or I wasn't all these characters. I don't want to have to reinforce it over and over again. I really don't. So just watch it and enjoy it without having to question, like, oh, what are you talking about? Okay. So, invited historical figures to her Amenten like Catherine the Great, Alexander the Great, and King Louis the Eighth, just to name a few. Unfortunately, her Amenten position stopped very shortly in August of 2016. August, like the beginning of August 2016, because she came down with the paritis. With the pruritus, severe breathing condition that is definitely not for the faint of heart. Like, this is sad, but this is the universe telling her, you're working too hard, you're being too ambitious, because she was working very, very hard, very, very dedicated, but it was her South Node. caught in the South Node patterns. And so while the condition was so terrible, and I wouldn't wish this condition on anyone, the breathing condition, because it is severe to have a breathing condition. Just imagine not being able to breathe. I mean, I cannot fathom that. Cannot even imagine that. But this was the kind of message like, hey, you're working too hard and you need to slow down and, go home. Go home inside yourself, go home to your family. So, that was kind of a sign from the universe in that respect. Wow. I really, really go into depth here. Okay, I did not label what I was going to put here. So let me do that. I don't know why I didn't do that. So I was very, very confused at that. No, I'm not. Okay, now we're going to talk about Corning. Now we're going to shift gears into not Iowa, not any place that I have talked about before, but Corning. Corning. And the message is reflecting on the past when it comes to Corning. Basically, it's my grandparents' house. Okay. They live in Maryville, Missouri. Like, this is the truth about them. This is the actual truth about my grandparents. Or my grandpa died, 2024, so it would just be, my grandma now. When the Amenten comes there, because the Amenten does come with me, they came with me seeing my grandparents. They came with me seeing my grandparents. They didn't actually come and stay in the house, but they stayed in separate living quarters, which I'm going to get into. Like, they went on buses and they came there. They stay in living quarters, which is like this building up the center town somewhere. And occasionally came to Lopez Noel's grandma's house for meetings. So, like, in the living room, there would be some way where they would all get in there, and there would be meetings, and there would be a meeting in the grandparents' house. And, I did my Amenten in the sunroom at home when I pretended to do this. And there was only so much space in the sunroom that you couldn't imagine all those people being able to fit in the sunroom. And, later there was a TV that was installed, and then there would be a separate room where you go in and then you would, see it on the TV. You would be able to see the Amenten meeting going on from remote locations that, everybody could see it because there's not enough room. And there wasn't enough room at my grandparents' house. Certainly not that, realistically, practically. Basically, the Amenten members can't idly show up on the porch step of Obembe Noel's grandparents' house. And I have a short on my channel called Don't Do This. If you look up Don't Do This, I'm going to tell you right now that short was basically this, where I pretended it was something I recorded back at the beginning of 2023. As a pretending I did post it. And I pretended to talk to, like, a lot of it's pretend. I don't do that anymore, but it's on there. You can go see it if you wish. Somebody was there. I pretended to get mad at them. Like, why are you intruding on me, enjoying the time with my grandparents because of an issue? Like, I need help with this, or I'm complaining, like, having a criticism or having a complaint. Like, I don't want to be bothered when I'm visiting my grandparents. I made that message crystal clear, and I pretended to be mad at that. Yeah. So, it's like a second home away from where Lopez Noel was my name, me including myself in this. It, in a way, resembles the very facts of life of going back to the olden days, first of all. like whenever I went there in the past, it was like I was stepping back in time to the, well, 1800s. That's questionable. The 1960s, the 1950s, the 1940s. Like it was stepping back in time and going back to the old ways of living, like the old home life, the way of raising children, the way of, memories, like how it was, back in the 20th century, back then. Like that's the feeling that I got when I went to my grandparents' house, when I was younger. Okay. It is on, in a way, resembles the very facts of life of going back to the olden days and staying in a house that resembles that in a very positively miserable way. Like I associate miserable memories to childhood, not the pleasant, good memories and all those kind of things, but miserable memories. And I mean, there's something about the astrocartography of that place for the longest time that really was difficult for me because I think transiting Mars was in the fourth house. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but if I have to guess at it, because Mars in the fourth house, anger, aggression, assertion at the home environment. I'm at Sun and Aries in the fourth house. Aries is ruled by Mars, so. But a lot of aggression, a lot of battle and temperament there, and it would just, things would trigger me, like things would set me off easily. I would find things to complain about. I would find things to argue about. I would find things to become mad about. Arguments, somebody would say something, there would be an issue with the house or the kitchen being too small, like all these things. Like it wasn't the best thing, and at home it was easier, but when I went there, there's all these arguments with family going there. So that's the memory that I get when I go there, to be perfectly honest. So it illustrates the negatively, negative aspects of growing up in childhood, how you got treated as a child, how you got raised as a child, speak when you're spoken to, like all that. Like, of course, my grandparents were definitely not like that. But it did remind me of, like, the old childhood living, and was kind of a projection to me almost of that. And I was like, no, we live in this modern age. Like, I want to have a different experience growing up. But like, it's kind of like that, where it's kind of like, yeah, I like, this drains me. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here if I'm feeling this way, but I enjoy coming there. No, no doubt about that. But I just didn't like that aspect of it. So anyway, enough about that. I talked about Blake Castle at the very, very beginning in the last part of this. But actually, with Blake Castle, was classes where you needed to learn the lessons. Like, the difference between Blake Castle and what I'm about to talk about is Blake Castle is where you're coming and you learn lessons because you messed up in life, or you did something bad, or something wrong, or what have you, or something disrespectful. Well, we had to take this classes seriously. They were serious classes. They weren't, by your interest and enjoyment. With Kind Look Academy, it's for your interest and enjoyment. It's like basically, it's very, very simple. Kind Look Academy is like college for the Amenten. It's very, very simple. Like a college setting, you just that thought alone is very intellectually attractive to me. In a college setting, wow, I'm just using that word all the time, aren't I? College settings where you can choose your classes that you choose, like what you're interested in, and take your classes and do all that. That's what Kind Look Academy is. Kind Look Academy is a school in which I, Lopez Noel, may have forgotten to say that in the past, but oh well, I wrote it the way I wrote it. Me, put my my Amenten is placed at, because I included myself in this too. Like most schools, has 2 terms, fall and spring. It offers many classes ranging from, interestingly, and a lot of classes do not offer this, like, can you go and find a college that offers these classes? This like, the difference is, yes, it offers the typical, math and science and whatever, However, it also offers things like all these subjects that you wouldn't find in a college setting. Like, for example, astrology and spirituality. Where can you find a college that teaches that? Well, Look Academy teaches that. It has all kinds of classes now with all the interest in astrology that I am not taking part in. I made it very, very clear to my Amenten that they would sit down in their living quarters for the rest because I couldn't find anyone to replace me and da-da-da-da. So they would be sitting in their living quarters and the Amenten thing and on their computer do whatever because I couldn't find an outlet for them and I was done. Like my soul, like this whole playing around with the Amenten. This was a contract that my soul had for a long time, for many years. From the whole pretend thing was like from 2010 to 2024, in which case it became more real because I published it on YouTube. That's a lot of years. And that was how long my soul was in it. And it was like 2024, like, I am done with this. I don't want to do the pretend stuff anymore. I am done. I want to do real from now on. Done. Just, I don't see the point in that anymore. I don't find any joy in that anymore. Like, you have to respect your soul contracts. If it feels right to continue, then do that. But if you're doing it and it just, like, doesn't feel right to you, then don't continue doing it. You're not obligated to do it. And I need to take that advice. So, okay, so in history, topics like ancient history, early modern world history, science such as biology, chemistry. It has many tavern halls and byways of being. Many, tavern halls where you would go and, eat and, sit and, like an average school would. It creates itself into a rather holistic academy, rather encompassing a lot of things, encompassing a lot of different subject matters. It can be great if you want to expand your dialogue with each such universal forces, like you're connecting to the universe in a way because you're expanding your mind. Like college classes are like when you are connecting with the universe because you're tapping into what you desire, what you feel inspired to learn about. You're on the ninth house, higher education, philosophy, like that Sagittarius energy. You're exploring the topics that you're interested in. It prides itself on its quality, classes, and instructors, and it is an open playing field where you can take any class that your heart desires, no matter if it supports your career trajectory or not. Hear that. I'm taking classes at DMAC right now. Community college DMAC. That's whenever I say that, I tend to not explain that all the time. But you can look it up. It's, Des Moines area, community college, community college. I'm taking classes there, or I was, but I'm not this semester. And I have to take certain classes to fulfill certain roles, certain requirements, but this kind of academy is like, you can take whatever you want. There's no requirements. There's no path. It's just part of, like, when you are at the Amenten, when you are a student, for example, at the Amenten, there's the guests and then there's the students. That's where you're like, oh, I'm confused. Okay, let's separate it. There's the guests that come in. Like, it's a lot of layers. Like, it can be really, really confusing. Okay, so I want to break it down. There's the guests that come to the Amenten, and then there are the students. And so, and so if you are a student, you're kind of bound to live at the Amenten. You kind of sign a contract and, whatever, and Lopez's and Lobembe's leaders, they mentioned when they show up, if you're getting yourself involved with the Amenten, you have to sign a contract, go through a whole system of things. Like it's like how you get checked into the hospital and check out of the hospital. Like it's a big process, not just a simple in and out thing. It's a big process of having to do all these steps to get yourself in, to get yourself out, and it's a hassle. And they want to make sure that you are really committed and driven to being an Amenten leader because you can't just leave and come whenever you please. You have to stay in the Amenten realm and, do all that, when you're doing it. That's kind of how I created it to be in my mind. Okay, so if it supports your career trajectory or not. It is a very informative place with lots of information in it, much like Hector and the Sphinx, which is a sitcom on DNL TV. I don't want to go into that. It's too complicated. It has many dividends of credentials to the ways of how it goes about doing what it does. Moving on. Oh, I really just spilled the beans. I did not prioritize what was supposed to... when I made this deck, I was like spilling every little thought I had about this. There's a lot of cards in this deck, because typically Oracle decks have... I made this into an Oracle deck. Oracle decks typically have between 44 and 68 cards, sometimes 36. So this one is like 50-something. So there's a lot to talk about. There is a lot to talk about, and I'm going to have to really take my time with this because there's a lot in here. So now I want to talk about Lubimbi Gross's TED Talk stage. Well, excuse me, Lubimbi Grunier's TED Talk stage. You're probably hearing me name all these things. You're like, what are you talking about? This is so trivial. This doesn't make sense at all. Bear with me. I explain. So Lubimbi Grunier happens to be one of the, Amenten leaders of the Amenten. That's who she is, and her middle name is Grunier. I'm expressing my Gemini energy, which can be kind of trivial. I knew some Gemini teacher who was kind of trivial with the things that he did. And I will name and claim that sometimes I do give in to those trivialities. As someone with 4 planets in Gemini, I think that's a tendency that I give into that I'm very, very self-aware of, and I want to be, very practical in that. But anyway, it's just my nature, I guess, from my perception of it. So Lubimbi Grunier is an unbattled Amenten leader who prizes great value on the Chingamix. This Amenten leader has a stage where people can present the information they have researched. Is this anything new? Go on TED Talk. See the, TED Talk people presenting. Do I need to explain all this to you? I don't think I do. You can go look it up. Sharing with pride, they suffer themselves out into the universes at large with what they have to say. Meaning that, TED Talks, they, have a lot of times it's these a lot of them are, like, I have voices in my head. I was watching one about that the other day because that's one of the issues in my life now. They had, like, OCD and went through all these struggles with, I don't know, all these things, and they talk about it, like they share authentically what's going on with them. It may prove otherwise to be regimented, but in a kind of special way, they can really speak with pride. They can all represent themselves in the best of ways. They can stand with pride atop a stage, this stage, and belt out what their individual message is. Each of them come with an individual message, 15 to 20 minutes long at most, and they're very, very well put together. Like, they're very, very well practiced. And sometimes I'm just thinking, I am just praying that they are as natural as they can be up there. Because when you try to perfect something, when you try to just make it so perfect, there's no soul in it. It's so perfect that it's lifeless. So I don't think that it's lifeless, but I just hope that they try to be as natural as they can up there. Certainly not boringly, robotically, inhumanely, perfectly perfect. But you have to, have good speaking skills, and you're doing all that if you're going up to present a TED Talk. So it's not only the facts that they research, but also their personal experiences mixed in with it all. So yeah, they weave the threads in a way that is graceful and poignant to what their message is in an ever-flowing and smooth-sailing way. All right. So let's get back to the basics. Let's go back to level 1 here. What is the Amenten? Like, this is an opportunity for you to understand. Let's go back to the very, very beginning, like that song in, Sound of Music. Let's go back to, let's just look at the Amenten in general. Let's look at a concept from the Amenten, and that is things go on. Very, very simple. Things go on at the Amenten. That's self-explanatory. Okay. So I have to get creative about this, and this is what I wrote. The Amenten is the epicenter of the Crystal Mountain at the beach, on the beach. It sings itself to sleep as soon as it's done with its preliminary functions. It creates high-level functioning endpoints and diptons and the longing for stimulation. Like, the Amenten is stimulation. It is, all of this, things going on, and when a lot of things are going on in your life, there's a lot of stimulants, there's a lot of stimulation. This makes the Amenten a truly special place to where it gets all the attention necessary to make itself what it is. It happens to be the main throttle and cog in the machine. The things go on, I guess, if I'm getting it right. The Amenten consists of staff members. I'm going to get into this here. I didn't get into it on the first episode. This is why I'm doing a whole series of this, so I can spell out all the things I have about this, because this is really, really big, and this was a really, really big part of my life, so I want to give you everything here, as much as possible, in a way that's Taurus North Node, where I can make it in parts so that I'm not burning myself out with one video. So, staff members. All these staff members that help out at the Amenten, head officials, like there's usually 3 officials, one head official, two other officials, whose job is to truly support the Amenten leader. Like, they are the ones to support the Amenten leader. They're the ones behind the Amenten leader. They are the ones who help out with the Amenten leader. Either a Lubembe female or Lopez male. The American student group, which is another thing, and the guests that come to this place. So these are all the sections of people that make up the Amenten. An individual Amenten, like there's the realm of the Amenten, and then there's the individual ones. There is a major building for the Amentens, but some leaders prefer to have their meetings in their house. Okay, so what this means is, you have a Amenten, like a sub-Amenten in the whole Amenten realm, and then you have your house, and then right next to it you have a building, like an Amenten building. I often did these things in my house, I claim. If that was actually exist, I probably would do it in the building, but I didn't. That wasn't. I made that up. It's not realistic. You can't just snap your fingers and have a building of a lot of rooms and all that kind of thing by your house. It's just this part of this whole, like, this is all pretend. Like, this whole thing is pretend. Okay, so there is your house, and then there's buildings, basically. Okay, and I was the one who preferred to do that. Well, that's the only option I had, to do it in my house. To put it in my house, I didn't have building to do it. The Amenten is comprised of many moving parts. A lot of moving parts, like it's a well-oiled machine, and it has to be. Like things just have to flow and function in a way at the Amenten where where things have to go together. Like, things have to function. Messages have to be sent. Like, guests have to be invited, and what have you. Like, things cannot be off. Things cannot be behind. Like, Mercury retrograde, well, we're going to double up on that, because we can't have any, it has to be, at the right time, at the right place, very, very specifically. Life is not always like that, but this is not real life. So things have to be on all the time. Like, I changed my interest of who I wanted to have guests very, very quickly, and the guest usually stays as long as that Amenten leader is interested in that guest. So it can be 2 days, it can be a week, it could be just one day. It's an always-on system. It never goes to sleep. It always stays on. It always functions on. That kind of thing. So Many moving parts that stimulate the proper movement that create the changes that the Amenten thrives on. Like again, there's these dynamics, there's these people, there's the situations that the Amenten depends on. Otherwise, if one thing goes wrong, then it becomes very, very difficult. It doesn't exactly fall apart, but it does slow it down. And there are no slowdowns or falters or delays at the Amenten. Let me tell you right that is unacceptable. This makes the Amentens unique in special ways. The Amenten is a very versatile place as well. Very versatile. Very versatile. Inviting all of these guests and all of these characters from all these different movies and all these kind of things. I mean, your Julie Esquimalt was kind of more biased toward feminine characters and what have you, but it's very, very versatile. Like, you're inviting all these characters from many different films and TV shows or whatever. Your real life. You can invite people from real life there. So yeah, creating an origin of many different customs, such as customs. Customs. I need to define this. What is a custom? How do I define a custom? Well, a custom is anything and everything. And you give a name to it. You associate a name to it. And I have many different customs that I've come up with. Everybody associates customs. Maybe we don't all have names for it, but we make customs. It can be the weather. It can be the food. It can be the clothes. It can be the people. Things that we experience, and these conditions are a certain way. Like, it smelled a certain way. It looked a certain way. The people reminded you of certain things. The food was a certain way. The weather was a certain way. You were in this certain place. And also, you may, after the fact, have thought of something else that reminded you of that, or a fantasy that you've had while you were in that place, or a fantasy that you had after that place that may be related or unrelated to that experience that you had. And so it's what you experience, and also what kind of things that you imagine yourself experiencing while you're in that real experience. So I base customs off of my real life experience. Like, that's how I define customs. It's through real life experiences and what they reminded me of. Like certain things in life. Okay. Some of the customs that I came up with that I will not go into because they're very, very specific. The Jordan Winter, that one's based off of Ina Garten. The Summer, based off of Queen Clarity and Tinkerbell. And also English teacher I had in high school / going into the forest on a summer day with a group of students, and it's like a summer day, maybe September, walking in the forest, like sunny. And the nostalgic Harris and Semper customs. I based these off of real people that I do follow. Like, Lee Harris does spiritual channeling and intuitive work. Melika Semper is an astrologer on YouTube that I've had conversations with on chat and on Instagram. Very, very into a lot of the same things that I am into. Astrology, books, cooking, all of that. So we do have a lot in common, and I do see qualities of myself in her. I have a whole song based off of her on my original channel, I do believe, called Melika's Hut, which is about Sagittarius, South Node, Gemini, North. You can find about the whole backstory of that song, and I think I explained that on a video. I don't want to go into that. I don't want to get, that's too minutiae. All customs have their origin as to person or circumstance that is named after them, and that follows what goes on in life. So you experience something, and you think of a person, like a random person. You experience something, and you think of being in another place. You experience something, and you think of being in weather. Like that's what makes up a custom. I want to clarify that. That's what I created as a custom. Okay. This is a more recent one. This is more recent. Okay. So, this one is more recent. And we have to do several, of these, recordings at a time because there's a lot of cards in this deck. A lot of cards in this deck. So, the astrology community. Astrologers came to the Amenten. The astrologers that I take the astrologers, like people that I follow on YouTube, astrologers that I follow, like Deborah Silverman and all these astrologers, they came to my Amenten. The message is like, look at the sky for answers. Like, that's what astrology is. The astrology community, I'm not going to go into what astrology is and There's other videos for that, and when I'm done with all the astrology videos, I will make a video like, what is astrology? What is all that what I've talked about mean? Okay. So the astrology community includes many famous astrologers such as these are real people: Deborah Silverman, Nadia Shah, Stephen Forrest, Carrie Samuels, Chris Britton, and many others of the astrology podcast. Chris Britton, the astrology podcast on YouTube. It focuses on a wide-scan outcast for the collective underbelly of what is actually going on. So the astrology of what's going on. It makes it so that the sky is alive and bright with fire and flames, so that it is necessary to look to the wisdom of the sky. In astrology, there are 10 planets, which include the. I'm not going to. Okay. I'm not going to go through this. I'm going to skip this. Skip it. Mars. Jupiter. That's not important. Saturn. I don't need to be discussing Uranus. Like, I discuss all these things that are not necessary. Neptune, Pluto, Lilith, Chiron, asteroids, the nodes of the moon. It is important, it is worth mentioning that these astrologers are for the general Amentens, not for only one Amenten. Like, this was a community. These astrologers came to this community as like, it would every Amenten would have access to it, not just one Amenten inviting all the astrologers. It was a community for all the Amentens. Okay. Wow, I do not break this up. The spirituality community. I have to come up with a phrase for that. Connect to the divine. I think that's the thing that I titled it. I don't know. I have to go back and look at the contents to see what the thing is for that. But anyway, I thought I titled all these. I thought I labeled all these, but apparently I didn't. So anyway, I'm not gonna sit through the whole thing. I want to make these videos, and I don't want to wait on doing it. Like I just can't. But most of it is fine. The spirituality community. Basically, the same thing. Basically the same thing, but just with spirituality. People from spirituality, like it's part of a broad Amenten scale as well, not garnered toward a specific Amenten. Compromise of Call It Baron Reed, Sonia Chiquette, Aaron Dowdy, Collie Wharton, owning authenticity on YouTube, no longer producing videos. Very, very disappointing. I dreamt about her last night. In fact, I'm going to put in one of the comments to one of her videos, like, I apologize for what I said, because I literally dreamt about apologizing, because I did something to her that was not right in the comment section, and I want to make amends for that. Like, I dreamt about it, and I'm going to make it a reality. Maybe she will see that. So disappointing. She was very, very good. She doesn't make videos anymore. So disappointing. Anyway. Eckhart Tolle, Dalai Lama, Sadhguru, Till Swan, and many others. All real individuals. Like, I have to understand, none of these people were made up for my imagination. These were real people that I saw in movies and TV shows, that I pretended to invite and to know into my real life, that I pretended were coming to my Amenten. It creates a dynamic fusion of the science of spirituality as well as the religious outlook on spirituality. It is a awfully strict, whatever that means, on the big physical questions to ask in life and seeking those answers. It can point toward a conscious contact with the divine, connecting with the oneness that all that is, which is, divinity. You're connecting with the one, and you're, with the divine. You're tapping into the source and doing all that kind of thing. This is a Seta. Okay, sorry about that. If I didn't mention this, there are Bini Seta. I call it a Bini Seta, which works with the computers in yoga for, I'm not going to explain that because I explained that in part 1, but, makes for being able to take these real characters and put them into real life through the computer. Well, I took all these characters from, movies that were, made up or whatever, from animation movies or, fairies, and made them real. That's what a Bini Seta is. For brilliant successors to come in the doors, knocking and evening banging for them to come open. I have to refine that. In jack to stack ways, I say that's what I intended. It can prove a mellow kind of hitchcraft in the base of all silences are concerned. It answers the call to a life that is filled with more meaning than ever before. It can point to many different directions using its raw skinned finger, but it all comes down to the spiritual path you choose to go on in your own life, and you have the freedom and autonomy to choose your own path. And that's what I want to leave it at that for that. So I think that I want to conclude that. I think I'll just do, maybe I'll try to do 10 at a time. That's what I can usually ease up to doing. So that I've kind of done this and figured out a rule, like 10 at a time, 10 of these cards at a time. That's usually how long I can go for. So that would mean 3 more parts to this. That's what it means. So there's going to be probably 3 more parts of the series. Maybe. There may be more, but probably 3 more. Just giving you a rough, unpromised but rough kind of, idea of how many parts of this series there will be. Like, I'm making a really, really big deal out of this because I want you to get the full picture of it. I want you to understand the full picture of my life. Just like I made that whole video on the progressed Saturn and made you understand, all about that whole story of all 3 of those issues. If you want to go back and see that episode, all 3 of those issues of the OCD, the guilt about channel surfing, the guilt about deleting. All 3 of those were going on at the same time, and I couldn't separate those out. So there's a lot in that. But you need to have some skin in the game if you are seeing that episode, and you certainly need to have some skin in the game if you're seeing this whole series. I'm going to tell you that right now, and I don't think, again, that many people will be willing or invested to see all this, but if they might, then that's their choice, and they certainly can. Again, none of my videos, I obligate anybody to see my videos. I recommend them in the community tab. If you want to watch them, you don't have to. There's no have to with videos on YouTube. And Carly Wharton from Owning Authenticity, I believe she believed the same exact thing. So anyway, that is all I have on this particular part, this particular episode of the Real Me podcast, as part of the Amenten series. Look forward to part 4 of the series coming up very, very soon. And it will begin with the looking at the Oompa Loompas from Charlie in the Chocolate Factory and what that is all about. So tune in for that and more on the next part.